Namaste. Welcome. Hello, everyone. I'm Anita Ratnam, and I'm telling you to get on your mark. We live in very unusual times, but also exciting and challenging times. So join me as I share with you some life lessons that I have learned along the way. As I have always believed, your geography is your history, where I have grown up, the countries I've lived in, the experiences I've had. This is what I am going to share with you. So are you ready? On your mark, get set, let's go. The colors of life. Look at a rainbow. How many colors does it have? And look at what we study in our classical texts. We talk about the Navarasa, the broad sweep of emotions that embraces every experience of human existence. Sringara Hasya Karuna, Raudra Veera Bhayanaka, Bhibhatsa Adbhuta. And we want to achieve Shanta, calm. But it's not happening, right? Not at this time. But tell me, why should life only be about peace and joy and happiness? How will we know that if we don't experience the opposite? We can't have Ashoka without Shoka. But of all the emotions, love, anger, courage, disgust, sorrow, compassion, I think fear is what we all feel the most. Bhayam. In fact, some elders have said the fear of the current situation of the pandemic will probably weaken us more than the virus itself. So how do we live in the present moment? How do we experience everything that life has? Because that's what I have experienced, every single emotion and so much more in my 6 decades of existence. Commitment. It's a very strong word, but I learned it very early from my parents, particularly my mother. Leelavati Chari was a determined woman. She wanted to learn dance, but she was prohibited by her stern father, who thought it was not appropriate. So she made a silent vow to herself. If she had a daughter, she would give that child the opportunity to dance. And she did. She persisted. In spite of a very supportive husband, my father, who supported her, but my father's side of the family was very against this, girls being on stage. But both of them protected me, and my mother persisted. She fulfilled her commitment to make me a dancer. But there were other incidents in which the word came back again and again for me. I was but 9 years old, and I was getting ready for my Arangetram. A week before that, I slipped down the stairs and I hurt my back. I mean, I really hurt it badly. My entire spine was scratched and bleeding. My father wanted the performance to be cancelled, but my mother said, absolutely not. There is a commitment, we've given a date, we printed the invitations. She took me aside, a 9-year-old girl, and said, this is your test in life. I know you can do it. It's only a scratch. It's a wound. It's bleeding. It will heal. But you will not get this opportunity again. Go through it. I know you can. I did at 9. Later, many years later, they both told me, as my reputation in the dance world grew, they both told me again and again, if you give your word to the public, if many people are depending on you, honor that word first. Whatever happens in your private life, whatever happens in your family, that can wait. A word given as a professional to the public is much more important. And this came up for me twice. I was in Minneapolis, a city in Midwest America. It was snowing, it was March, and I get a phone call, and my father had passed away very suddenly. I was right in the middle of a rehearsal of a very big theater and dance production, and the show was opening in a few days, and the tickets were all sold out, but my father had passed. My mother, when she was on the phone, you know what she said? She said, I know you want to come back, and I know you want to grieve, but you've given your word. Honor that commitment because your father would have wanted you to do that. But something in me said, I have to come back. I needed a sense of closure. Well, between the time difference and the long flights and the snowbound airports, I did manage to come back. I couldn't see my father, but I did come back just to see my mother, my siblings, and my grandmother. But I flew back in 36 hours for the premiere. My mother put me on the flight. Go honor your word. I did. And then, when it was my mother's turn to breathe her last, I remembered again. I had a very important performance in Hyderabad. And I knew at this time that she may pass on any day. We didn't know when. But I sought her blessings and I left. When I was performing, it was a show called Framing 5. And it was about the 5 elements that exist within us. Little did I realize that as I was on stage, my mother was releasing all the 5 elements into space. She was breathing her last. But I think she held on. She held on long enough for me to go to another city and honor my commitment. That was the strength of her conviction and her belief. That strength has stayed with me through my life as a single parent and as a mother of 2 very different creative children. Mindful walking. I love these moments that I take out for myself, early in the morning or late in the evening, or even sometimes when I've returned after a trip, to walk barefoot with the soles of my feet, feeling the grass, feeling the ground, feeling the earth, feeling the soil. It is like a moving meditation. And as I walk very quietly, I try to clear my mind of the events of the day or the events of the previous day. And I'm trying to plan for the day ahead or the next day. But I really treasure this time, 5 to 10 minutes, quietly by myself, without much disruption or disturbance. You can find this anywhere. A nearby park, a corridor in your apartment building, in the mornings when it's quiet. But it's a mindful walking that is important. Consciously putting one step before the other and really acknowledging all the entire surface, the soles of your feet, because the feet remembers. It remembers, like my feet does, that it's walking on the land that has been here even before the house was built, and at least the ground in which 5 generations of my ancestors have lived. Curiosity and cross-training. Every evening around the dinner table, my parents would ask me, so, what new thing have you learned today? Always keep the question and the bubble of curiosity alive. So what I learned during the pandemic was, I, like many of you, am a big fan of the painter Raja Ravi Verma and all the beautiful ways he has depicted and painted women in Indian history and mythology and legend. But I did not know until recently, when I attended a webinar, that Ravi Verma was influenced by the Italian Baroque painter Il Guccieri. And Il Guccieri brought a kind of a luminosity and a 3-dimensional way in the way he painted women, the way he angled them and the way he painted their bodies. There was like an inner glow. And this was a huge influence on Raja Ravi Verma. I learned something new. When I talk about cross-training, I talk to all of you in the creative fields. It's not enough for us to just dance every day, to paint every day, to sing every day, because sometimes we're exercising the same side of our brain and the same muscles in our body. As dancers, I say hike, climb, swim, run, do something different. Why not do meditative arts like Tai Chi and Qigong, where there is no music, where you can move in silence? The same way, why do we pride ourselves on our creativity and our imagination? What about the other side of the brain? I grew up in a business family where discussions about profit and loss, balance sheets, return on investment were often discussed. And so very early, my father insisted that I also learn how to manage my finances. Today, we talk about Atmanirbhar. We talk about hashtag vocal for local or make in India, made in India. What can be more Atmanirbhar than all of us independent artists? We are responsible for our art, but in that process, we hire a few people, we have some salaries to pay. So in a sense, we are small-scale businesses. So instead of always trusting our finances and our accounts and our money in somebody else's hands, we can also learn to exercise the other half of the brain. After all, the right and left brain, right side and left side, both bring a balance. So this idea of curiosity and cross-training has been invaluable for me. Be like a mountain. Arunachala, the Red Mountain, stands as a spiritual center in a South Indian town in Tamil Nadu called Tiruvannamalai. Now, Arunachala, the mountain, is believed to be a manifestation of the Shiva Linga itself. So, nobody can climb on the mountain because it will be like putting your foot on Shiva. Nothing is allowed to be built on the mountain. It is Shiva himself. Instead, millions gather and circumambulate the mountain. The Girivalam, it is called. Think of the mountain, stable, strong, serene, witnessing life in its many colors as it's passing by. Be like that mountain. Do not allow anyone to trample your dreams, your hopes, your ambitions. Do not allow scaffolding and buildings of hate, paranoia, envy, and anger to trap you. Instead, be like that mountain. Allow the forests and the bristling vegetation of creativity, birds, animals, let it grow around you. That should be the aura that you create. Be like the mountain. Arunachala, a red, glowing flame of creativity and possibility. Persistence, a lesson I learnt from my mother, Leela. I'm standing next to this painting. It's a very famous image. It's called The Storm, and it hangs now at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. Painted in the late 19th century by a French painter, Pierre-Auguste Cotte. Now, my mother educated herself. In fact, she completed her bachelor's after she got married and had her 3 children, a BA in history from Queen Mary's College. And every weekend, as she was taking me to dance class, and later as I started performing, in between homework and the constant touring on weekends for the dance performances and back, she had a little postcard of this painting, The Storm. And with her art teacher, she began to create this canvas. It took 6 long years. We as kids would pass by and we were not allowed to disturb her. But she was persistent through all the ups and downs of a tumultuous marriage, of a business family that was growing, of all the pressures that she was facing and the constant criticism about allowing her daughters to dance. She persisted. And this painting that she completed 60 years ago is a testament to the quality of persistence, of being committed, the idea of total surrender, prapatti, to the path. She never deviated, and she made sure that all her children imbibed that quality, persistence. You are enough. You are complete at this very moment. So I want you all to do something that my guru told me. Sometime during the day, or maybe the first thing in the morning, Look at yourself in the mirror. I mean the mirror, not a selfie on your phone. And look into the eyes of the person standing there as a reflection. Smile and say, I like you. It's not easy because we all want to change ourselves, the way we look, the way we are. But remember that you are enough. You are complete. It is your DNA, unique in this world, and it's your journey to make. So be passionate, be persistent. If something doesn't work, pause, stop, pivot. Look at a different direction. The answers may come, the blocks may clear, but never stop doing. Be a creator, not an imitator. Make something, a painting, a drawing, a poem, a piece of music, anything. Do not become cynical. Be full of hope. Embrace life in all its possibilities and all its colors. Because remember, you are enough. Success does not come without its companion, failure. Ask me about it. You know how many times I've flopped, fallen, got bruised, got up, dusted off the scabs, kept going. You know how many times I've had terrible reviews, people have walked out of my performance, and the next week I get a standing ovation. People have criticized me, they have lambasted me, they've said, what are you doing? But I've persisted. And today I'm talking to you because people think what I have to say is worth listening. But you know what? I'm an arts entrepreneur. I have motivated and started so many new ventures. I've inspired and been a catalyst for so many young people. But I'm also a single parent for 30 years of 2 extraordinary but very creative and difficult kids. And so I ask myself, if people look to me all the time for advice and answers, where do I look for shade? Who will give me shade? And so it's very important for me to cultivate my circle of love, my trusted friends, who I can be just myself without any masks. During this pandemic, 6 months of it, I didn't dance because I didn't feel like it. But I was busy with so many projects online, some of which you may have seen. But finally, I decided to create a short movement video. I can't call it a dance work, it's a movement work. It's called Motherland. And for me, it was like returning home to a familiar residence where I grew up, my children grew up, and now it's time for the 5th generation to walk the same floors. Motherland was created as a response to the way I felt with no ornamentation at all. And it was my moment of how I felt as an artist, as a performance artist, and a choice I made of how I want to connect. Maitrim bhajata akhila hrijetrim, Maitrim bhajata akhila hrijetrim. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Thank you.
செல்வத் திருமகளே செங்கமல நாயகி. தங்க கால்களில் தண்டைகள் தங்க மேனியில் மாலைகள் குலுங்க. தங்க கைகளில் தாமரை விளங்க. பொங்கிடும் மங்களம் புரிதனில் பொழியும் செல்வத்தின் கமல மலர் மனம் கமழ்ந்திடும் தாயே. செல்வத்தின் மகளே செங்கமல நாயகி. शुद्ध लक्ष्म्यै बुद्धिलक्ष्म्यै महालक्ष्म्यै